So I want to welcome everyone. Good morning. This webinar is part of a series of webinars we developed for school health advisory councils over the summer. We've been hosting different topics around reopening, physical education, and different areas that would help our school health advisory councils during this extremely challenging time. So I'm going to make our PowerPoint live now. And we'll get started. Okay. I'm Michelle Smith. I'm the Texas State Coordinator for Action for Healthy Kids. And we're excited to have a great team with us this morning. Alice Kirk, who is our chair for Action for Healthy Kids as a volunteer. And she is the child health specialist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. And joining us as well are representatives from two different school districts who are going to share information on their school health advisory councils. John Adams, who is the Director of Health and Wellness and Physical Education with El Paso ISD, and Micah Holcombe, who is the SHAC Chair and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Agent in Milam County, coming to talk about Cameron ISD. They may share a little more information about themselves as they're sharing their information about their school districts. Just a few logistics. If you have any trouble hearing, you can log out and log back in using your phone. All attendees are muted, but you can submit questions through the question box, which you should see a little Q&A. If you want to make a comment, shout out, say hi, you can use the chat function. And then also know that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll send a link along with any of the resources we discuss to you in the next few days. Just a quick introduction for those of you who may not be familiar with Action for Healthy Kids. We're a national organization that was founded in 2002 when Dr. David Satcher was Surgeon General, and he declared we had an obesity crisis. So over the past 20 years, Action for Healthy Kids has worked with schools to help improve the school nutrition and physical activity environment, and have expanded that to include the whole child model and all the components that are related to the whole child model. Our goal is to make sure kids are healthy, active, and ready to learn. We have a lot of great resources on our website. You'll find tip sheets, information on grants. We have collected a lot of resources and worked with Kaiser Permanente on a toolkit for reopening schools. So be sure to visit our website for that additional information. And since we are in Texas, this is being sponsored by our Texas Action for Healthy Kids. Just a little bit about what we've done. We have been really involved in advocacy efforts over the years and working with districts on wellness policies, as well as collaborating with some great partners and state agencies to provide support for school health advisory councils and help make sure that parents and community members are part of any decisions that are impacting children's health. This is just a quick thank you for the organizations and school districts who have been working with us for the past months to identify the best way to support SHACs and provide their insights and ideas on different aspects of school health advisory councils. They have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we are very thankful to be able to access that. So now I'm going to turn this over to Alice and let her talk a little bit about school health advisory councils.
Thank you, Michelle. I do realize we've got quite a few people from other states joining us. Welcome. Thank you for attending today's session. Although we know not all states have school health advisory councils, we do feel that the information that we're going to share today could certainly be applicable and is certainly relevant for all public schools that would provide federally approved school meals, because they are required to have a wellness team that reviews district policies. Here in Texas, that is how we utilize our SHACs. They help fill that role in most of our districts across Texas. So a school health advisory council, a SHAC, is a district level advisory council that really assists, the aim of it is to assist the district in ensuring that local community values are reflected in the district's health education instruction. And that comes directly from our TEA code here in Texas. Next slide, please. SHACs are mandated by law here in Texas. So what that means is each school district in Texas should have a SHAC. The SHACs are appointed by the school board, and they really help serve as the voice for parents and for the community. And it's really an excellent way to help kind of cross-communicate, cross-educate between districts, the school board, parents, all on how we can come together to help improve health, which we also know can then greatly impact the academic success of our children. So SHACs are mandated to review all of the health-related curriculum, and really over the last 10 years, their scope has really expanded to also include the components of coordinated school health programs. Michelle, next slide. SHACs have become more and more essential because of the various issues and the risks that our children are facing. So many of the risks and issues are behavior based because our kids do spend so much time, a majority of their day, in a school setting. Of course, given the situation we're in right now, it may be in person or it may be hybrid, it may be online. Regardless, they are still being impacted by schools. And so it's really important that we recognize and can support the healthy behaviors to help ensure safe and healthy learning environments for our kids. And in a nutshell, that's what SHACs are doing. That's our aim. SHACs are a good connection, as I noted, between the schools and the districts with a variety of health and wellness topics. On any given day, we know that schools can be overwhelmed with a myriad of everything from paperwork, grading, testing, etc. And what we have noted here in Texas is that unless it was something that is mandated, it can at times be ignored. So SHACs can really make sure that things that impact our children's ability to be successful, activities like physical activity, recess, having nutritious lunches to eat, having a good breakfast, looking at bullying policies, talking about social and emotional learning, having a safe place for people to come together, for families to play, for children to play and be active. And so many of these items are driven by the district policies, and SHACs are a great way to ensure that those district policies are in fact reflecting the input of parents and school districts, children, and just all across the board helping pull us together. Next slide, please. So there are a number of benefits that SHACs help us with. They do bring focus to the important role that health and a healthy lifestyle plays in the learning environment. So we're not just sending our kids to school as a brain, if you will. You're sending the whole child. And so as we look at things, if a child is hungry, if they're tired, if they're sick, if they're feeling unwelcomed, bullied, etc., that's really going to impact the ability of child to be successful. And so SHACs are really focused at bringing whole child education to the school district to parents, really supporting that involvement component, that coordination aspect between district, parent, and school and youth that we know is so important. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at our membership. How many of you on currently are struggling to get members to actively engage in your SHACs? Ideally, when it comes, I see a couple of hands. Let me see. Yes. I'm pausing for a second, and the hands are going bananas. So yes, we certainly recognize that this is having parental involvement is key, and we know that it is difficult to get members actively involved. Since 50% of the SHACs should be parents who are not district employees, it is really important to recruit in the beginning of every school year. You're going to have turnover at times, but once a good core group is established, parents can really be some of your best advocates for bringing in other parents who can also, it just kind of spreads. But I think it's always important to start with, it may be a small group, but a core group of parents. One of the places that we always encourage SHACs to maybe look at and partner with are the PTAs. If your school district has an established PTA or PTO in some instances, that's a great place to look at least involving one representative from that particular organization. Also, looking for any parent support specialists. Again, not every school district is going to have a parent specialist designated for the school, but if your school district does have a parent support specialist, that's a great place and great partner to look at in the conversation when you're getting your SHAC together. Looking at teachers, asking teachers for referrals. Maybe they've got a couple of parents that are go-getters who are always the ones volunteering to help in the classroom or to you know, lend a hand. It's great to know that you've got those parents already interested. Let's see about bringing those parents into the conversation of school health. There's a good likelihood they would jump on the opportunity. Putting information in district newsletters, school newsletters that are going out, posting information on the website when meetings are going to be held. I think it's incredibly important that the SHACs are transparent within the school district as well. Over the years, my two boys have, we've been in two different school districts at times, and what I found to be really effective was the more that we were transparent about when meetings were going to be held, the more that helped parents feel that it wasn't an exclusive group, that it wasn't something that they had to necessarily initially just to express interest. They could go to any one of the other SHAC members and say, hey, I'm interested in this topic. Who else should be on the SHAC? When you're looking, besides parents, which should certainly be 50% of your SHAC, you also want to bring in, besides school involvement, a district engagement component. Incredibly important if your SHAC is going to remain sustainable and really have some of those wins. It's important to have that district support. So asking, involving some sort of district personnel on the SHAC can really help you move your goals towards success much, much more quickly. They do not have to be voting members of SHAC, but it's important that their input be there for some of the decisions and discussions that are being held amongst the SHAC. Also, having a school board member on the SHAC, again, even if they're a non-voting member, can really help add credit, add awareness, and be a really important part, again, of moving your messaging forward with any policies that your SHAC may want to entertain. It's also important to include the school administration and the school board in the process. Administration staff can be used as resource members throughout. When you are taking any of your policies to a school administrator, it's really effective if you can relate what is happening with the school district, the policies that are putting into place, maybe for including breakfast in the classroom, and being able to indicate, look, our kids are eating healthier, they're being more active. Let's look at how they're scoring better on tests, and ultimately that will make the school district happy when you can relate that to the fiscal dollar within the school district, especially when we look at absenteeism, because they certainly want their kids in the classroom or actively engaging and participating online. Showing that connection between health and academics and physical activity and good sound nutrition is really important if you want to gain that support from school administrators. A little bit later in today's presentation, we are going to share with you a great new resource piece. It's not new, it's just been updated slightly. That is, it's a one-pager called The Learning Connection, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's really a great way to help share the message and get that message across to the school district administrators about the importance of good health. Next slide. Before we jump into the nuts and bolts and kind of a lot of the nitty-gritty about SHACs and laws, I did want to provide a little bit of that historical context on the Coordinated School Health Program and really how it's evolved over the years. CDC developed the Coordinated School Health Model back in the 80s, late 80s, and primarily it was to encourage schools to take steps to promote health and prevent chronic disease, which is still very much applicable to today. However, the Whole Child Initiative was actually introduced later on in 2007 by ASCD. And what they were doing, it was a national education membership organization. And they introduced the Whole Child Initiative really as a comprehensive approach that encouraged the educators, school staff, school board members, parents, family, and the community to get involved, all behind the goal to support and prepare our children for success, not only in school, but through their lifespan. So in time, the education and public health and the school health sectors have recognized that there really is a need to align all of those components, to really look for ways that we can integrate, collaborate, move out of the silos that oftentimes we live in on a daily basis, and really find a way for all of us to start moving towards the one goal. And so as a response to that and a call to action, CDC and ASCD partnered to develop what is now the whole school child model. So let's take a look at let's see here. We really use the what is now the WSCC as the WISC model, or you can use the acronym WSCC. So you will hear that in a number of ways throughout, especially from other states. Here is a great model. Thank you, Michelle. So this is the model, the whole school, whole community, whole child model, otherwise known as WISC. And that's what Michelle and I will, from throughout the rest of the presentation, we may refer to it as the WISC model. It provides the framework that schools can use to create a healthy environment that is going to support student success. The model, as you can see, is centered on children, on our students. And then it fosters a comprehensive approach to addressing the barriers and support for learning and health. So as you can see from the model, it calls for a greater collaboration across school, community, and the various health sectors to meet the needs and the support for each child. Regardless of what your role is in the school community, from this model, I'm certain that you can find a place where you could play an important part in the implementation of the WISC model. And so for just a quick example, AgriLife Extension, we are certainly one of the community partners that would fit very well. Next slide, Michelle. So for those of you familiar with the coordinated school health model, as we just discussed, there are components that are likely appear similar with a few minor changes. So the model changed the original component of the healthy and safe school environment into two components. It broke it down between social and emotional climate and physical environment. Given the current climate of COVID-19 and as we're progressing, there has certainly, as of recently, been a much stronger emphasis in some areas related to the social and emotional climate that our children may be experiencing. This change to divide social and emotional climate and the physical environment was made to reflect the differences between the psychosocial and the physical environment found in any school. Another change in the components was the splitting between the family and community involvement into two distinct components, again, to emphasize the role of community organizations such as, I just mentioned, AgriLife Extension here in Texas, and businesses, as well as the critical importance that families play in the health of our school environment. Finally, the health promotion for staff was changed to employee wellness. So basically, the new WISC model encompasses all of the same components of the coordinated school health, but it puts different emphasis on how they're structured. And that is key because I think as you look at the new model, it does better align with and provide an opportunity for everyone to maybe see a little part of where they might fit in. Now here in Texas, we have mandated to have a coordinated school health program in each district for grades K through 8th. So we still use the coordinated school health term since that is part of our Texas law. Okay, I'm going to pause, see if we have any questions, and I'm going to turn it over back to Michelle so that we can start to delve into the laws of where our SHACs lay.
Thanks, Alice. We've answered several questions through the question box. This last question, what suggestions do you have for dealing with community members who seem to only want to push their product or services rather than actively participate? Unless they're on the agenda, they shouldn't have that opportunity. But that is, I mean, there's one of those things you can limit how people talk or how they participate in the meeting. I'd have to know the specifics. Does any of my panel have a experience?
Yeah,
they can share?
actually, Michelle, we dealt with that a few years ago. We had a parent on our SHAC who was really advocating for the removal of using Clorox wipes and those kinds of things, and she kept talking about the dangers of it, and they put together a plan, and that particular subcommittee was working on that for a good portion of the year, and they were really looking at some of the things she was saying. Well, as it turns out, her husband had a company that had just created some kind of new product for cleaning tables and stuff, and we all figured out, oh, that's what this is about. She's trying to push her husband's product. So we kind of had a discussion about the conflict of interest, and we moved away from it quickly, and we didn't have to deal with it too much. So luckily that was an easy one. I assume with some vendors it might be more difficult in this particular case, and she was willing to bow down and take a back seat to the whole thing, and it was eventually no longer discussed. But yeah, that is an issue you have to be careful with.
Thanks, John. Okay, so other than this slide here, the next section is going to focus on Texas law. So any of you from out of state that may not want to know exactly what our laws say, you can grab coffee and join us for our two presenters. We'll try to move through this fairly quickly. I did want to mention that local school wellness policies are one of the things that our SHACs deal with. It is the written document that guides the local education agency on healthy school environments. It's a requirement of USDA, if you're doing school meal programs, that you have local wellness policies. So in Texas, our SHACs are usually the group that is identified to participate and help develop and implement those policies. The actual school wellness policy mandate includes a statement that says they must be developed and implemented by local parents, teachers, administrators, school food service, school boards, and the public. So that pretty much describes what we try to strive to have our SHACs look like, and who we like to have encompassed as part of that. So it makes sense for the School Health Advisory Councils to actually be the group that does those policies. So what about the Texas law? We've actually prepared a document which we're going to share out. I know some of you won't really need it, but a lot of our SHACs have asked for the specific laws. So we have put together a document that lists every law that was passed since 1995, which is when SHACs came into being. And they'll also be included in the Texas Education Code. So you'll get that in our follow-up email. So real quickly, we're going to run through what the law mandates, because our SHACs are mandated to have certain things to function and to review and make recommendations on specific things. In the beginning, the SHAC was actually formed to be a sex ed council, but over time we have tried to change that and not make it so specific to just one thing, and have succeeded in over many years putting in place independent councils that answer to the board and that are free to express themselves of their own opinions, and deal with more than just sex ed. So to ensure that the district wasn't over-regulating the SHAC, we helped institute a requirement for a parent chair or co-chair that was not an employee of the district. Not that we didn't want parents who worked for the district to participate, but wanted to make sure that whoever was chairing the SHAC felt free to help the SHAC, guide the SHAC without having to answer to the district as their employer. The SHAC was also required to report their work to the school board each year, and there are requirements that they meet a minimum of 4 times, keeping in mind And also that they would be comprised of at least 5 members, trying to keep in mind that a lot of our districts are pretty small. So a lot of these are just things to try to help make sure that we have some consistency among our SHACs. Also, SHACs must publish, or the district needs to publish a statement to make sure how many times a year a SHAC is met. And as we mentioned, the SHAC recommendations when they go to the school board have to be considered. They don't have to accept SHAC recommendations. SHAC is just an advisory group, but their recommendations have to be considered before changing any district health curriculum or any of the other related mandates that SHACs are required to make recommendations on. They recommend the number of hours for health education based on different grade levels. And one of the more recent ones that was added, I believe, in the last couple of sessions was making recommendations around mental health concerns. So when the legislature met, they felt that they wanted SHACs to be looking at how the district was addressing mental health concerns and what type of recommendations they felt should be putting in place. Other requirements include SHACs having a physical education and a physical activity and fitness planning subcommittee to make recommendations on keeping kids physically active. Here you see other mandates that SHACs should discuss and recommend on, including joint use agreements and a recess policy. The law doesn't specify what the recess policy should be, but it does require that SHACs will review best practices and research before making their recommendations. So does anybody have any questions on these laws? I went through them pretty quickly and tried to just hit the highlights. I don't see any. Okay, great. Well, then I would like to turn this over to John Adams to share some of his knowledge and experiences and best practices around SHACs as the Director for Health and Wellness and PE with El Paso ISD. John.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, Michelle had initially asked me to talk a little bit about how we kind of rebuilt our SHAC. So I need to give a quick overview to that. About 5 years ago, our SHAC lost a longtime core of members, and our membership really started to dwindle, and some things were going on there. And so we kind of had to start from scratch. And there was about a 2-year period there where our numbers were just really low, and not a lot of work was being done. So we were searching for some ways to help improve that. Ready to go to the next slide? So some of the things we put in place was we put together a plan. We sat down and talked about some things, and Michelle's team was instrumental in helping us do this. We kind of sat in together, and she started giving us some ideas. And I'm not normally a very creative person, but once a seed is planted, I can kind of run with it from there and get moving on it. So we did some things that we talked about. One of the things we did was we changed our location to a more centralized location. We were meeting at one of our central office facilities. Some of our SHAC members had shared that was a little bit intimidating for some of our parents. We live in an area of Texas where there's some undocumented situations going on, and I think people were just afraid that they might be exposed for things, and so we didn't want that to be an issue. So we moved to a different location that was more centralized and on a campus that's a little bit more parent friendly, and so that's one of the things that we did. And then we also changed our time frame. We were meeting right after school, like at 4:15. It was just too hard for parents to pick up the kids and get there and do some things. And so we moved it to an early evening time frame, which was a 5:30 start. We were worried about that, but we were able to provide a light snack supper to kind of help with that 5:30 time frame.
Hey, John, you want to share you're still on your photo as opposed to live.
Yeah.
I won't make you be live, but just FYI.
Say that again. Yeah. So we utilize also we have a PE teacher that we utilize at our meetings to help kind of take care of the smaller kids who aren't a part of SHAC. That was a big concern. Parents like, well, what do I do with my kindergartner or my first grader? So we have a deal with one of our PE teachers in our district, and it kind of changes every year. And so they come in after work and they provide some physical activity for those kids, and you do those kinds of things for us to help with those kids. We require also that each of our campuses also have a campus wellness team leader. We ask that they work collaboratively with our campus parent engagement representative to select a parent who can represent their campus. And then in addition to that, what we started doing was a lot of times we have these wellness team leaders who would ask this parent, hey, can you come to this SHAC meeting and represent your school? And they were doing that, but then they get there and the parents like, well, here I am. There's all these parents in this room. I don't know anybody, and the person who asked me to come isn't even here. So we required that as part of their stipend, we added a piece to their contract stating that they must attend at least 2 meetings, and we recommend at least the first 2 meetings, if not at least the first meeting with their parent representative, so they can say, I'm here with you. We're going through this process together, and those kinds of things. So that was a big plus for us, and it really helped our numbers increase. We have 30 to 40 members, really no less than 20 at any given time now. So it's really been effective for us to get those numbers back up again. So some of the things our SHAC is focusing on for this coming year, first of all, we do meet 6 times a year. We meet September, October, and November, and then January, March, and May. The reason why we meet monthly in the early part of the year is because that's our planning time. So September, we kind of come up with some goals, maybe some activities that people want to work on. Then we have October and November kind of in short order there. And then after that, it's more, okay, committees are breaking out, they're meeting on their own time. And so then we get together every other month and say, okay, where are we at? What do we need to do? What do we need? Anything we need to vote on? Give us some updates, those kinds of things. So the first 3 meetings are really those first 3 action meetings. And then after that, it's just kind of keeping people up to date and moving forward on things that we might need to do. So we haven't had our first meeting yet this year, but some of the things that have come up for this year is we have a middle school health and PE requirement policy. And so it needs to be revised and updated. So we're working on that. Hopefully that'll be something they'll be able to finish up this year. Our bylaws for the SHAC have not been updated in quite some time, so they need to take a look at those. And then also to continue to review those human sexuality content pieces that come in, approved presentations, those kinds of things need to continue to happen. One thing I didn't put on here though, but I think it's a big accomplishment that we need to note is that last year we were able to pull our elementary recess policy out of the wellness policy, and now it's a standalone policy. We kind of followed Austin's model, and then we tweaked it a little bit and made it our own, and added some things that Austin didn't include. But we were able to do that. Then that went to the board and it was approved, and so now we do have a standalone a recess policy that the SHAC was able to put together in this past year. So we were really excited about that. So engaging parents, and I saw this kind of came up in the chat, and people are concerned about, how can you get them involved? So this is what we do. At our first meeting each year, we provide an overview of SHAC, kind of like what Alice did here earlier, explain the role of SHAC and the role of SHAC members, and express the power of SHAC in driving district decisions. And like Michelle said, that they don't, the school board does not necessarily have to follow what the SHAC says. But what I found is when our SHAC does their due diligence and they do their research, and they include parents and they include every possible stakeholder that they can, when they take a recommendation to the board listens to that, because they know it wasn't just thrown together in a week. Here's what we want to do. Let's approve this. And so they spend a lot of time checking all those boxes. And usually when you do that, the school boards are going to listen, because it is, there's voters that are involved in that, and school board members care about that, and their parents are involved in that, and they care about that. And so we want them to understand that the power of SHAC is exactly that. And then the second thing is, and this is very important to me, I make it very clear. And again, I don't run the, there was a time there where I was kind of running the meetings because the chair just there were some issues there, and I've really taken a back seat to that now because I want them to understand as a district leadership, as district employee, I facilitate the meeting. We help with the logistics, we provide support, we answer questions, but really our role is not to drive any decisions. And I tell them that the power in SHAC is that it's parent driven. Really, ultimately, they should be telling us what to do. I'm not going to stand in front of the SHAC meeting and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is what I think the district should do. No, it's the other way around. They should be telling me as a director of health, wellness, and PE what they think is best for our district in terms of the health of our campuses. And so we make that very clear to our SHACs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but they have to understand that power is in them as parents. Then they have to own that. And it's not my SHAC, it's their SHAC. So some of our biggest challenges, in addition to maintaining our numbers, is keeping a consistent SHAC chair. Being the SHAC chair is it's like being a PTA president. It's a big role, and and of course we help them with that. We facilitate that, but that takes a special person to kind of do that. So it's been hard to maintain. Our SHAC chair is usually 1 to 2 year tenure, and then they move on. Somebody else steps up, and so having that pipeline, I guess if you will, of leaders who are willing to step up to that level. Makes it very difficult sometimes to maintain that. So we've struggled with that, and right now we have a good chair and things are good, but at some point we know he's going to step down, and we're going to have to address that. And then the other thing too, and this is probably a bigger issue, is just having those. We have usually 4 subcommittees. We had that required health subcommittee, and then we had that required physical activity subcommittee, and then we have a couple of other ones. Research subcommittee and some other ones that kind of change from year to year. But then finding somebody to chair those committees is difficult. Everybody has an opinion, and everybody kind of knows, what they want to recommend. But then when it comes time to saying, okay, great, I'm glad you're where you are. We need somebody to chair this and make sure these things are happening. And then it's like, well, I know what I want, but I don't want to be in charge of it. So that's very difficult for us. And then 2 other things too. And we talked about this earlier, just because something's in policy doesn't necessarily mean that is being enforced. I mean, yeah, it's mandated. Okay, we got that. But we all know that there's state laws on the books that people don't follow every day. There's state mandates that aren't followed. There's policies that aren't followed. And so in order to make sure that those policies are fully implemented and enforced at the campus level, sometimes it's very difficult. And also getting the campus administrators to understand what the role of SHAC is and the role that they play and the influence that they can have. Sometimes it's tough. So most of our administrators are very supportive. They know who I am when they come. And, usually if I say, wait, if there's a decision being made, and I like to be able to use SHAC as the heavy, I guess, if you will, I can say, hey, you can't just make that decision. We need to get SHAC's input on this. Okay, well, I didn't realize that. And so making sure that that's happening sometimes is difficult for us. We just sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time, because if you're not there to catch it, who knows what slips through the cracks. So we're really working hard at making sure everybody has an understanding of what that should look like. So some things that have changed with COVID, certainly it's changed our ability to meet face to face. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, because we haven't had our first meeting. I'm concerned. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Some of our subcommittees, especially that human sexuality and health subcommittee, they have some pretty intense discussions, and they're very engaging. And I'm kind of concerned that doing it virtually, we may lose that a little bit, because everybody's distracted by stuff, and I was distracted here a second ago myself. And so how do you maintain that intensity when you're virtual? And so that's I'm worried about that, but we'll see what's going to happen. However, I will say that I think there are some potential maybe good changes that will come out of this. One of the things that our SHAC, and I said earlier, when you do your homework, the school board tends to support what we do. One area we have not been successful at, and we really haven't gone to the board with it yet because we're trying to get district leadership support first before we do that, and we're struggling with that. And that is the idea of closing our high school campuses for lunch. You know, we know that kids are using drugs at lunch, they're drinking at lunch, that they're not making healthy food choices when they leave campus. You know, we've had some cases where kids are getting pregnant during their lunch times, and so we really like to close our high school campuses, and we've struggled with that. And it seems like we go back to it every year. Well, all of a sudden now with COVID happening, guess what's going to happen with our high school campuses starting in a few weeks when our kids go back? They're going to be closed campuses. Not only will they be closed campuses, kids can't leave for lunch, they also can't use Uber Eats or something like that to have food brought in to them. They will not, no food deliveries will be allowed on campus. So I'm hoping that's going to be a way for us to say, hey, you know what, we tried to close the campuses before during the pandemic. Maybe we need to look at this further. You know, let's kind of strike while the iron's hot, kind of a thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing if that may be a way for us to begin, for lack of a better word, winning that particular discussion. And then also, you know, I think that the health of our nation and of our students has been moved to the forefront because of this. You know, we know that the screen time is hurting our kids, and the lack of physical activity is hurting our kids. And so this is an opportunity for us to have deeper discussions about those topics. And so I'm hoping with that those will be some positive changes that COVID has brought for us.
Michelle?
John, thank you so much. You always bring such passion when we have you, and I always get such great comments. John has been such a big asset to our organization and to the El Paso project where we've been doing some work down there. We have some questions. Some of them I think John can answer now that he's off. And a couple of them we'll answer at the end, but I do want to make sure that we have time for Micah to present on what's going on in Cameron and Milam County. So we're going to hold on any of the questions that are more general topics, and we'll get to those after, if we have time after we have Micah. If not, we'll answer them in our follow-up email. So now.
So can I answer a few of them, or you want me to wait?
You can answer them in the question box.
Okay, got it.
Some of those are more campus related, and we're focusing more on the SHAC.
Yep.
So I think that might be a good way for you to handle it. Okay, thanks. All right, Micah, you're on.
All right, thank y'all so much. Good afternoon, because it is 12:30, so, or almost 12:30, so we're afternoon, I would say. Welcome everyone. I put a picture of myself. I can't show my video, so because I came in as a participant, I believe, and that's why. So just wanted to let you know there. I'm Micah Holcombe. I live in Central Texas between Austin and Waco. And I do have 3 kids myself. I have a 9-year-old that's in 4th grade, and I have twins that are 5 that are in kindergarten. So just wanted to give you just a brief history of me, so that way you can get to know. I do not work for the school district. We are, through AgriLife, we are adjunct faculty, so we're able to go in as part of a faculty agreement that we signed at the beginning of the year with the schools. So we are able to do that, but we also are volunteers at the same time. Cameron, if you see right here on our little thing, I love it because it helps you see where we are, but we're kind of right in the middle. That's why we're called Central Texas. So population of Cameron, I'm going to focus on that one today, but we have about 5,700. So we're quite smaller than El Paso and some of the larger ones. We're a very small county, rural county. And within Cameron, we have 1 ISD and 3 schools. So Ben Milam, which is our pre-K through 2nd, Cameron Elementary, which is 3 through 5, our junior high, 6 through 8th, and then of course our high school. So that's a little bit about Cameron. Our Cameron ISD SHAC, I've been working with it when I came on here in 2014, 15, January of 2015. I started out with the SHAC. I've always loved SHACs. I was part of it in one of my other counties. And I just started meeting with them and instantly became president. And so I've been on as a parent and as an AgriLife employee. And also I'm on the PTO board for both Cameron Elementary and Ben Milam. So I actually serve as a PTO member, and I forgot, Alice and Michelle, to put that on my list that we actually have PTO representation, but I forget all the roles that I play and the hats that I change out. Some of our membership, we also include our assistant superintendent. She's kind of our advisor, and our food service director. I know someone asked about that in the chat box earlier. Hi, Joy. Thank you for saying hi. I love that. I saw our chat. But on there, we actually have our wellness person, wellness team leader that goes over our wellness policy, make sure that our website's up to date, our wellness policy is correct, is our food service director. She takes care of all that, and we work with her along with the assistant superintendent to make sure that our wellness policy is up to date and our website is good for any audits. And we actually got audited, I think not last year, but the year before. So we actually learned how to go through that wellness audit. We also have WIC, Health Department, Head Start. Our parents are integrated into that. So for instance, I'm a parent, our WIC director that's in there is a parent. And so we try to have a lot. And I believe our new Scott and White rep, that's our hospital system that we have in this area. So they are going to be, our new Scott and White rep is going to be a parent as well. We also will be, again this year, we tried last year, didn't go over so well, but we're actually trying to get 4 high school students, hopefully our student council officers from each grade, 9th through 12th, to be our youth representatives. We tried last time, but we met at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they were in sports. So that was kind of a little problem. So this year we're doing our Zoom meetings during lunch so we can get more involvement. And then the assistant superintendent's gonna bring those students over to the admin office and have lunch for them and let them Zoom in with us. So that's what we're doing this year. That's kind of going with my COVID changes. Go ahead. Some of our SHAC focus, I'll go over these briefly, but our main focus is to provide a variety of health programs to meet all needs. So going back to that wellness policy, how does it fit everything? The ones that I really want to highlight right now are our community and ISD things that we're doing for everyone. We do an Instapot electric pressure cooker dinner series. Last year we did it face-to-face for our staff and then 1 virtual ones because it happened during COVID. And this year we're going to be doing it virtually for everyone, family members and for staff members. We're also going to be doing the Fresh Start to a Healthier You, which is a AgriLife program. I also do the play streets during the summer that provides summer opportunities for kids to play and have physical activity as a family. And that we used to do that during community cookouts in the fall and spring, but they're not having the cookouts. So we're going to be doing them in the summer, but having more school board and school participation with our SHAC. There's a lot of other things that we do. A lot of them, I will say under this, if as you're seeing, like, wow, a lot of them are AgriLife, Texas A&M AgriLife extension programs. So you're welcome to, if you're from another state, to look up what we have on our AgriLife. Just Google Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, Family and Community Health. I'll put that in the chat box for you. And we can visit about more programs if you're interested. And I think we're ready for the next slide. Our biggest challenges that have hit us are that we're not allowed to have assemblies or face-to-face instruction. So I worked with the assistant superintendent, and we're going to be doing some Zoom or Google Meets with the classrooms, and actually I'll Zoom in with them and do, for instance, we're doing Color Me Healthy with pre-K kids. So I'll be actually Zooming in with them and talking to the class, and that'll give me a chance to meet more of the kids and not have to be in assembly. The food demonstrations, we're still trying to figure that one out. Are also, as I talked about earlier, we're moving our SHAC meetings to noon, and there'll be Zoom meetings to accommodate for COVID restrictions. Walk Across Texas is a big one we're doing, that you can actually walk It's our walking program through A&M AgriLife Extension, and that's an easy way to social distance and get exercise. Our play streets, one of the cool things we're talking about this year is having community donate old toys and then let the kids play with them and take them home, and that'll reach more physical activity in the family. So we're really excited about that one. And as you can see, we have plenty of other opportunities, such as the water refillers we're gonna put in all the schools. We had someone donate water bottles to the entire school district for every single child. And so right now there's a dilemma in our schools about water refilling and parents that are not refilling the waters and bringing them back every day. So we're gonna put water refillers in the school so that way they can better get water refilled instead of using the water fountains, which are restricted. And I believe Safe to Save is another program. If you're interested, email me and I'd love to talk to you about it. I think that's it. Thank y'all so much. I hope that, a water refiller, someone asked about that. Basically, if you've been, I don't know if you've been to zoos or whatnot, but they have like a special, it's kind of like a water fountain, but it's for a water bottle to be refilled. And so you just stick it in there and it refills your bottle.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Sorry, I ran through that real quick. I was trying to get you ended quickly.
Well, I know you have another meeting you have to rush off to. If there are any questions specifically for Micah, we'll make sure she gets those and answers them if they haven't, she can't get to them before she gets off. So.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, I'm running to do a national presentation, so heading to another one.
All right.
Have a great day. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, there's never enough time for these presentations. I apologize if we're running a little over, but we'll just run real quickly through some of these resources. Someone had asked about what to do with COVID, and we developed this document a few months back with the SHAC team that I showed you earlier, and we'll send this out to you. It's just some suggestions on what your SHAC could be doing, and how you can move forward with COVID. So we'll hope that will be something helpful that you can use. Also, there's a state SHAC in Texas called the TXAFHK, and they develop resources and recommendation documents around physical activity, healthy eating, recess. So those are available on their website, which are really, it gives you the research and information you need to support doing a recess policy or improving physical activity at your district. They also have developed something called the SHAC self-assessment, which is based on different documents, including the School Health Index, and it gives you best practice for what your SHAC should be doing from a process perspective. So it's just a way to look at your SHAC and how it's doing and kind of gauge where you need to make improvements. And then we have this document that Texas, actually the kids in our state team prepared, which was based on the School Health Index. One of the things, sometimes SHACs have difficulty trying to decide what to focus on. So this would give you something to walk through with your SHAC and have each member score where they feel they stand on different issues, healthy vending policies, if it's in place or not in place, or something that should be considered. Once it's scored, then you can look and add it up and see where your district parents and different members of the SHAC feels you should be focusing your energies. We've also included links to different websites that you can find helpful. The Department of Sales Services has a SHAC guide. Texas Education Agency has a link to the laws and the rules if you want to look at the actual laws. The Department of Agriculture has a great website they've developed under squaremeals.org, which has information on local wellness policy requirements and links to different resources that you can use if you're working on your wellness policies. And Texas PTA has information under their Healthy Lifestyles website. There's a national policy database at NASB, which can be very helpful if you're looking at developing specific policies. CDC has some great information on school health. They also have the School Health Index. They have a lot of different good resources that you might be able to use. And then a group called the Center for Science and the Public Interest, or CSPI, has a lot of resources around nutrition, school food, and different beverage and school meals that you can find very helpful. The Action for Healthy Kids put this new document out. We had a resource called the Learning Connection, which made a lot of the connections between health and academics and around nutrition and physical activity. So this is a one-pager that was developed this past year, which kind of encapsulates most of that information. And it's really helpful to have something like this if you're talking to school board members or school administrators, because that academic link is the one that they're the most interested in. Parents care about the whole child, as do districts, but when they have so much pressure on academics, this is something that they tend to relate to. As we mentioned earlier, we have a lot of different webinars that are archived on YouTube. We'll send you the link, and we have one more webinar series coming up in October around vaping, which I think will be a great opportunity to discuss all the issues that are going around that. And then on November 16, 17, we're going to do a virtual summit. This is our first time to do this, so we're still working out the logistics and how we're going to register, if it's going to be one link or two or whatever. So we'll be getting information out on that in the future, and we'll try to send that along to the group as well. So I'm going to run back through, let's see, we're over 1 minute. If you want to hang out and you had a question, we can get to those now and see if we can answer a few of the questions that we had earlier. So John, you answered the one about PE in high school. How does the district interact with SHAC? Unclear on that. SHAC is an advisory only work group, but to get anything implemented, you really do need that district support. So finding a way to meet with district administration, whether it's a yearly meeting with the superintendent or some of his cabinet, and making sure that you discuss whatever recommendations the SHAC wants to make with the district and get their input. Sometimes they may bring something up that you hadn't thought about that may want you to revise your recommendation before your SHAC votes on it. But I would suggest that you always try to at least include them in some way. Alice or John, did you have anything else to add to that? Okay. There are some questions specifically for Cameron. We'll have them address those later. Our district wants to go through the district in order to present to the Board of Trustees. Is that how it's supposed to work? If you want to be friends with the district and have their support, I would say yes. It's always better to do that. But if your district is not supporting what your SHAC wants to recommend, you have the right to go straight to the school board. So I think it's really important to have a school board member on the SHAC as a resource member. They don't have to be a voting member, so that they can take information back to the board, and the board will be aware of what's going on. And if the board is aware, then the district is going to be more likely to be work more closely with you and make sure that your information gets there.
So Michelle, I want to also acknowledge that yes. So when we passed our recess policy, we did go through our leadership and cabinet as part of that. We didn't have to, but we did. We wanted them to be a part of it. We wanted them to be aware of what was going on, and so we did do it that way. And we were able to push it through both that leadership piece and the board piece. And actually, I don't recall that offhand, but I remember at one point we actually took the policy back to SHAC because one of our associate soups asked a question that I couldn't answer, and it's a question that ultimately, I mean, who knows? A school board might have asked the same question. So by them looking at it and saying, hey, you forgot about this piece, maybe you should consider it. We went back to the SHAC and we looked it over, and we did include that. So sometimes it's good for them to bring a different perspective as well. I was a campus administrator before I came to central office, but sometimes I miss stuff too. And so having that extra set of eyes take a look at it so that we don't have any, collateral damage, I guess, if you will, was really helpful to us in that particular case.
Thanks, John. John, you may be able to answer this one. I don't have one. Are there resources available on how schools are implementing the latest opioid policy change? Has TEA done anything on that, or dishes?
So they're not, but so it just so happens in our district, I'm that person, and I go to campuses. I personally go to campuses and do presentations on opioids, marijuana use, tobacco use. I have a whole bunch of presentations that I go to campuses and utilize, and so then my department also we provide that training kind of through our health teachers. As well, and that's how we're handling it. But I mean, it's going to vary from district to district.
Yeah, I was going to say, Michelle, I have not specifically seen anything come out directly from TEA, but I don't mind looking at that as well. Again, as an agency, because AgriLife Extension does offer a variety of programming, I do know that we also have some agents that are trained, and we have some specialists that go out and support schools that need some of that free education on a variety of opioid and e-cigarettes and vaping and so forth, just a whole variety of that. So I don't mind looking into that. We'll see.
And I thought dishes usually came out with some things in the past as well. So
yeah,
yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. Have either of you or anybody had any experience in incorporating mental health and well-being into the SHAC? I guess that would be in the wellness policies.
So I was actually just about to answer that, but
Okay.
I'll go ahead and answer here as well. So we are working on that. I think we're getting there, but we currently actually have in our district an SEL department, and then we have our guidance and counseling department. And collectively, those two departments do a very good job of addressing those areas. But I'm starting to see more of a need that maybe SHAC needs to play more of a role in that, and I'm going to have that discussion with our chair. But we'll definitely make sure that those two departments are involved in that process somehow, because they oversee that and they do a very good job with it. But I think we're approaching the time where we need to look at that more.
Awesome. Any other questions I may have skipped? I mean, I know there's some that are kind of specific to presenters, and we can share those and make sure that we get those answered. In the chat box, there's some information from people. We'll also try to share that. Whoops.
Michelle, I have seen a couple of questions about
Okay.
just regarding the presentations, and just to reiterate that we are recording this, and we will send that recording link out along with those extra resources. Many of those pieces that Michelle referenced towards the end of the presentation, many of those documents will be sent out as well.
So this will, as Charles, you asked if it would, the same type of presentation be made available for new people getting involved. They're always going to be archived on YouTube. So, we've suggested that SHACs share the links and have new members watch certain videos, certain webinars. It would be great information. Melanie, I know you've had some questions about PE. I don't even know where to go with that. We fight every session to try to get PE to be mandatory again. Yes, it used to be a year and a half of physical education and a half a year of health were required in Texas, but that was changed, and I'm not sure which session. It was an accommodation for athletics, kind of. But a lot of districts I know kept the requirement. I know in Austin, they kept the requirement for a year and a half of PE and a half year health credits, but it is no longer state law. The only thing that's required now is a year of physical education.
Yeah, and that's true. So it's still a year of PE required for graduation, and then like you said, districts have the option of requiring that health piece, which we do that as well. Right. We require the half of health. I think the bigger issue is the PE mandate is there, but allowing so many waivers and substitutions is the problem. I mean, that's the real issue, because you can get a PE credit for a lot of things that I don't really think are considered physical education. They're certainly physically active, but they're not learning the concepts behind that. That's my biggest issue is there's so many waivers available and substitutions.
Well, and even though they're waivers, they're supposed to still be teaching the TEKS that are required for PE, even if they get a waiver. But I'm not sure how many of those rowing clubs and different things that I know some of our kids were going to are really teaching those TEKS.
Right.
So, but that's one that we'll keep fighting for to have reinstituted. We're one of the only states in the nation that does not require health education as a.
So I think so for us, I mean, those substitutions, I monitor those very carefully, and I'm pretty we don't have very many requests for outside substitutions of PE. I think they are following the TEKS, but I'm more concerned about the athletic credit that they get. They get there's no physical activity, physical education at all. I mean, they're doing football stuff, they're doing volleyball stuff, they're doing baseball stuff, but there's no. And then those kids graduate and they don't have the skills to take care of themselves because the coach isn't right there screaming in their face on, doing what they need to be doing. That's my biggest concern. Not really so much the substitutions, but the waivers for athletics. That's a bigger issue. That's my personal opinion. I'll make that very clear. My personal opinion is they need to have PE. Even if you're in athletics, you still need to take a PE class. But again, that's a whole different argument down the road.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Micah, who had to leave us. I think this has been a great session, and I hope everyone is leaving with information that will help you continue to work on having healthy, active kids that are ready to learn, and that the Zoom platform or some of the other virtual platforms works for you with SHACs. I know I've 2 districts now that said they increased parent engagement with their first Zoom meeting. Both of them went over the 100 mark, so they don't know how many parents got left off. So you might want to make sure that you can have an expanded platform to get over 100. So I think that's going to be wonderful to have more parents involved. And let's take advantage of the positives that John mentioned around this pandemic that we're dealing with. We will be back. If you haven't joined our mailing email list, be sure you get on it. We hope that you're fed into it automatically, but sometimes that doesn't work. Or if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, Alice, John, or Micah. And thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
And
thank you, Michelle.
So people ask about the recess policy. I will send that to you and you can share it with the materials.
Perfect. I will do that. All right. Thanks a lot. Y'all have a great day.